don't know about Shapiro and McClintock's work. He's like, why don't they? I'm like, they're ahead of their time. Besides that, it's kind of politically incorrect. It raises questions that you're not supposed to talk about. So, science stays mired in something that's not really scientific. Suddenly, the study of evolution has practical application. Now, I find it interesting that, the basis of life, the basis of DNA, everything that goes on is a function of language and communication. That the whole process of DNA itself is a communication process. And I find it interesting that the Christian theological view of God Himself and of God's relationship to the world is one that says, like in Genesis, it says, and God said, let there be light. And God said, let there be. And God said, and God said, and God said. It was a process of communication that created the intelligence that we have on earth. And then when you go to John chapter 1, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. That God is language, God is communication. Therefore, every instance of communication that exists on earth is a reflection of the nature of God. And yes, we can learn a great deal about God by studying living things. And with that, I will open it up for questions.
Mark Shapiro, what's his...
James Shapiro?
What's his name?
James Shapiro, yes.
Shapiro, what's his scientific background and what's his religious persuasion?
I do not know his religious persuasion. He's published, I'll show you a couple things. I've got one of his books here. He's been publishing papers on this for 30 years. This is a book called Mobile Genetic Elements, which was published, I think, in like 1982. Okay? So, I mean, a long time. And if you Google this guy, you can find a whole bunch of papers, and they describe this whole evolution as an engineered process concept and how amazing it really is, and how, man, the genome, it's like an operating system, and DNA is not the static thing, and everything. Mr. Shapiro has very skillfully maneuvered his career in such a way as to not get blasted by for want of a better word, the Darwinian Gestapo. Okay. He is also not anymore enamored with the opposite crowd, which, here's kind of how I look at it. If you look at the world like God made butterflies, and God made people, and God made protozoas, and He just made them, okay? I'm fine with that theologically. That's okay. From the religious point of view, I don't have any problem with that. But what's more impressive to me? Way more impressive. Which is more impressive? Microsoft having all these engineers making all these products that you find on the Microsoft website, or if all these products evolved out of one product all by themselves with no external interference, which requires a better engineer. Okay? I believe that the only way to study science is to have the highest possible view of God and the highest possible view of God's interaction with the world that is made. Wow, could all these organisms be here for 4 billion years and all this happened just because it was programmed to? And every organism adapts to its environment. Every species fills every ecological niche and consumes every resource available to it and adapts to consume the resources even more skillfully. If it doesn't have what it needs, it finds what it needs or rewrites it. Wow. But as far as we can tell, that is exactly what we've got. It's amazing.
Yes? Hey, Barry, you've been debated a lot on infidels.org. What is the strongest argument that's been put forth?
If you go to my website, cosmicfingerprints.com, you will find a link on there that says Perry versus 30 atheists. And if you go look at it, what you actually find out is more than 2 years ago, I got pulled on to debate on the biggest atheist website in the world, in their discussion forum. And this guy came along, and I got this little debate with him via email, and he got flustered, and so he put a link to my site, and he basically said, be polite while you rip this guy to shreds. And this has been going on for 2 years now, and they have not poked a hole in this argument. Now, the basis of the argument, DNA is a code. All codes we know the origin of are designed, therefore DNA is designed. Okay? 3-point syllogism. So, if they're going to knock down the argument, they got to knock down one of the 3 points. If they can poke a hole in one of the 3 points, so the answer to your question is, well, a third of them tell me DNA isn't a code. A third of them tell me, oh yeah, there are a whole bunch of things out there that are codes that are not designed, like magma flows and magnetism and snowflakes and stalagmites and pebbles on the beach. Those are codes. Fractals. Okay. Well, none of those things are codes because they don't contain any they don't contain any sequences of symbols that uniquely map to a meaning. You go look up an ASCII table and 1000101 maps to some letter, and it doesn't map to any other letter. And the same's true with DNA. You will not find that kind of a relationship anywhere outside of living things or outside of man-made communication systems. You simply will not. And so nobody's been able to find an exception, although you'll find people that probably posted today that tell that I'm just being stubborn because I won't admit that pebbles on the beach are codes, okay? And then the third one, therefore DNA is designed. They say, well, you can't jump to that conclusion. Well, actually, there's 5 conclusions, okay? Therefore, DNA happened by accident. Well, could have, but that's not a scientific explanation. It's not systematic. It's not testable. So that's not very helpful. Therefore, humans designed DNA. Is that logical? Yes. Is it possible? No. Okay, so that's out. Therefore, aliens designed DNA. Well, it's possible too. Doesn't answer the question. Just pushes the question back further. Therefore, some unknown physical process designed DNA. Okay, that's very good. When you find a process anywhere that produces codes, naturally, you will then be able to study the process. But right now, this process that you're referring to has never been discovered and cannot be studied. Therefore, that is not a scientific explanation either. Therefore, the only one you're left with is a metaphysical designer designed DNA. It's the only logical conclusion that you're left with. And it's a valid conclusion if you believe in inferential reasoning. And if you don't believe in inferential reasoning, then you just have to throw out all of science. Because you cannot prove, I cannot prove before I drop it that this chair is going to fall when I drop it. However, inference is that 100% of the time when you drop a chair, it falls. And that's all we got. This belief that what happened before is the way things are going to happen again. So that's to answer your question. Yes, sir.
What would you say to the Christian community that's trying to oppose naturalistic evolution and the tax that they're taking and changes that ought to be made in the strategy?
I think most of this debate is horribly misdirected. Okay? I mean, like, both sides make me nauseous, actually. Sorry if that sounds obnoxious, but there's a big difference between science and philosophy.